Welcome to the official YouTube channel for the Colin Cowherd podcast. Go on, hit that subscribe button if you're new so you don't miss any of our great football content this season. And so it begins. John Middlekauff, former NFL scout, has his own podcast, 3 and Out, Golf 2, Go Low. Next 20 weeks or so, we'll do an hour plus here on a Sunday night. Get it to our YouTube page, the Colin Cowherd YouTube page, volumes as well. So let's start. Packers 27, Lions 6. There were two things in the off-season that worried me. They hired within the building. They lost two great coordinators, Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn, hired within the building. It was an auspicious debut by the coordinators. The second thing that worried me, rebuilding the O-line. They have really pushed people around for the last several years up front. They averaged 2.2 yards a carry on the road. Also, if you take Ben Johnson and McVay out of Jared Goff's career, those are two whiz kids. So we can get to Micah in a second. Let's talk Detroit. They were not really that competitive. They didn't get push up front. The rebuild of the O-line is a complete work in progress, not clever offensively. This is my problem with, you have an opening at a company, let's hire within the company. This is the NFL. There's 32 teams. Lions are elite. Go get the best OC. What was your first impressions of Detroit's offense?
Well, I think you're the first guy I've ever seen that made a grand proclamation after the Hall of Fame game, and you were right. I mean, they were a mess. I thought, Colin, we're a little early, but one thing was clear watching the Jets today is Aaron Glenn's a pretty special motivator.
Yeah,
I do think replacing defensive coordinators are hard, and a lot of times it does happen internally. I mean, the 49ers did it once upon a time with Saul to D'Amico. I think that's what Dan. So I don't have a problem with that one. But anytime you hire basically a first-time coordinator, 55 years old, in a day and age where 30-something OCs are all over the pros in college, just because you know this guy, and all I kept hearing was he's Sean Payton guy, he's John Gruden's guy. It's like, why didn't they make him as coordinator over the years?
Yeah,
they never did. So to me, calling plays, most people in the NFL, if you got them on a whiteboard, would blow you away with their knowledge. But there is something instinctive about a play caller, about knowing when to call plays. And today, they look like a mess. Now, you know where I stood. I thought the Packers were going to be good this year. Game was in Green Bay. They were very motivated how crappy they were last year, especially in the division. This was a huge game for them. Remember the Lions, beat them twice last year. And historically, the Lions never won in Green Bay. So I would say Green Bay had a lot to play for, but yeah, I mean, it was ugly. If Jordan Love's going to play like he did in the first half, they would beat a lot of teams, Colin. I mean, he was like 12 of 16, threw a couple touchdowns. He looked like 2012 or 13 Aaron Rodgers. And I think the way he was playing, the way LaFleur was calling plays, their wide receivers were making plays.
Yeah.
They would have beat this version of the Lions last year with the coordinators, I think, today.
Yeah, and I will say this about Green Bay's defense. Micah opened it up for other players. That was pretty obvious. He got a sack late. But I do think his mere presence, and I think you see this all the time, if McCaffrey's behind Brock Purdy, it's a different offense whether he touches it or not. And I think with Micah Parsons in the game, Van Ness had more opportunities. I just thought, to me, it was like very obvious that the Lions went into this game and the staff talked about, listen, when you see Micah on the field, know where he's at. That's what it felt like to me.
I do think I'm not going to write off the Lions just yet because this was a road divisional game, and this was, they got their ass kicked. If this would have been in Detroit, I would be completely out. I'm going to give them a little bit of grace here, but you're right. The offensive line, to lose your center, to lose a big-time guard, they've really hung their hat on that, right, the last 3 years. Best offensive line in the league, best offensive line in the league. Their quarterback can't move. He is really the last of a dying breed, right?
Yep.
You watch college football, they all can move. You watch the NFL, all these quarterbacks can move. Watching Darnold and Purdy today, and they're average athletes, right? So a guy like that is something we would have seen 15, 20, 30 years ago. They don't exist anymore. So when you can't protect, Goff is a sitting duck. And that is the one thing where a great play caller can help him out. And I think Johnny Morton, I was like, God, that name sounds familiar. Oh, yeah, he was the wide receiver coach on all those Harbaugh teams with the 49ers. Yeah. Well, everyone was getting jobs then. How weren't people interested? If that guy couldn't get a job off that staff, pretty big red flag. And honestly, it couldn't come back to bite Dan Campbell big time if this is if that's the display that we're going to see throughout the season. They'd be in major trouble, Colin, because that division's too good.
Yeah, well, it was funny. I had Green Bay as a playoff team, but in second place all off season. Then I finally flipped it and put Green Bay winning the division. And I think the thing that I really came back on is if you looked at Green Bay with all the injuries they had to Jordan Love and all the youth they had at tight end and wide receiver, and they're still winning double-digit games. I mean, they won games with Malik Willis, who got thrown onto the squad in like August last year.
Yeah.
And it's like that tells you organizationally and coaching, they're a pretty special group. Plus, their defensive coordinator now gets a second year. That we've seen that a lot, where it's a second year for a coordinator. I mean, Mike McDonald, Seahawks in year two, looked pretty special today at times. So, no, I think Green Bay is a great example. You know, they went after Charles Woodson or a Reggie White or a Micah Parsons. They rarely, very infrequently go out of their comfort zone, big trades or big free agents. But they generally do it and they're right. It's like drafting quarterbacks and big free agent signings. They don't miss a lot, you know, from Aaron to Brett to Jordan. You know, and when I watch Jordan Love, the one thing I like about him, I'd compare him more to Favre than I would Aaron Rodgers, where, you know, if he throws a pick, it doesn't change his mood. He's kind of a let it rip guy. He was that at Utah State. He is now. There's a certain, I mean, it's kind of cool when your quarterback's young and all his tight ends and receivers are young. Like at the end, Brady was playing, you know, he didn't have any patience for young receivers for New England. And Aaron doesn't love playing with young, you know, tight ends or young receivers. I get it. But Jordan Love generationally, all these tight ends and all receivers are probably the same music, the same tech. They're the same age.
I thought the first half he looked like the guy that played 2 years ago down the stretch, those 6-7 games, which essentially got him a massive contract. But the Micah Parsons move, you know, Reggie White was a true free agent. It was the first year free agency ever existed. So was Charles Woodson. They gave up nothing. While they did give up multiple first-round picks, that has no impact on the 2025 season. So they essentially just traded Kenny Clark straight up for Micah Parsons this season.
Right.
So you're watching them. They get a huge upgrade in terms of the edge. You could tell, I mean, Micah, I know he was working out on the side in Oxnard and with the Cowboys. He's not in football shape because he hasn't been playing football. But I would imagine by October, I mean, can you imagine him and Gary coming off because Gary is much more kind of a complete, rugged, you know, defensive line presence, where Mike is that true Ferrari off the edge. And this coach, you know, I don't know if Hafley's going to get an NFL job. It's a little more difficult sometimes for defensive coaches, but he's going to be a number one candidate in college, right? I mean, some of the big Power 4 school. I mean, he's a big-time coach who's putting a pretty impressive resume on the defensive side, a place where the Packers have not been good, Colin. I mean, they haven't been good for a long, long time on that side of the ball.
That's why I defended the Micah Parsons move. It's like, when's the last time you got a consistent, dominant edge rusher? They just don't do it. And it's interesting because through the years, they've spent their first-round picks on defensive players. But the problem is they're always so good, it's generally late first round, and that's kind of no man's land. So that, you know, you're getting the safety or the corner or, you know, the outside linebacker who's like the 24th best, you know, prospect. Well, that you're paying a first round salary for a guy that's GMs prefer you take in the second round. So that's the downside to being excellent is their draft picks in the first round are late. I look at Green Bay as a place where Micah, and I heard some things, you know, last year about Micah off the field and not great in the locker room. A lot of that stuff came out when ESPN threw a slew of excellent reporters on it. My take was that's Dallas leaking stories to cover their face, right? Cover their ass on the trade and make Micah look bad. But Micah's going to work in Green Bay. Micah's going to be there. By the way, he got in the first half. First of all, his introduction, it was like a Super Bowl introduction. Then in the first half, he got a good rush. He didn't get anybody, but a good rush. The crowd went crazy. So he's going to love that. For the next 6 months, he is going to be you know, the belle of the ball.
Most human beings aren't natural leaders. Whether you're a football player, whether you work in a company, most human beings, even at the highest level of any industry, are somewhat followers. So you blend in to where you're at. The Cowboys are a pretty chaotic place. I mean, it's not very normal relative to the rest of the league. I think if you put a lot of guys in Green Bay's situation, how many people over the last 10, 15, 20 years, honestly, even going back to Favre, had problems in Green Bay? It's a pretty easy place to blend in. A lot of people with the Cowboys just have, it's covered a little bit different. The owner has a unique presence, not just in the team, but in the I heard you talking last week. You have to wave to people on tours. It's not a normal operation for the NFL. He gets to be pretty low key in Green Bay. Yeah, I mean that was an ass kicking today. That really was. But even if the Lions, if the Lions were to miss the playoffs, let's just say this is kind of a year from hell for them. They won 15 games last year. That'd be a pretty big step back, right? If you won 8 games, that'd be a problem, and Campbell would probably have to fire this guy immediately as offensive coordinator.
I think one of the things you said earlier, Goff is, by football terms, kind of a dinosaur as a non-mobile quarterback. He was great when the Rams O-line was great. As Whitworth got older, he wasn't as dominant, and today he looked out of sorts. So it's one of those things where, Matt Stafford is the only guy in the league under pressure that can shred a defense. He is a different cat. Okay,